Hello and welcome in my shack. My name is Thomas Travöger. I am from Austria, and some people know me about 2006, 2007. I am the Pyramid Man. Well, today I want to show you to construct a pyramid which is producing electricity, and I will show it to you step by step, and I will answer all the questions in this video. So after looking this video, maybe it comes in a few parts, I don't know it because I have to keep it in a format which is YouTube working. After viewing this video, you will be able to construct your own electricity producing pyramid. Well, first time, please excuse my very bad English. I had a few problems because first I wanted to make the video in German, but I thought if I make the video in the German language, there are too much people which are not able to speak German. They have too much questions, and one of the most things I don't want is to answer millions of questions. Maybe you can remember 2006, 2007, we had great problems because there were some translations online in the internet. They were that stupid. With these translations it was not possible to make any pyramid. On the other hand, maybe you remember I had the situation I wasn't able to finish my project V.6, version 6, because I did a great mistake, and I have to say sorry for this mistake, because I saw the great money, and there were some people, they wanted to make me richer than rich, and sorry, I'm only a man, I have some family, and I thought it's a good possibility to start a new life. But some people know in the internet there are very many stories about me and my personality, and I can guarantee you 50% of these stories, they were true. Now I know a few things more, and one of the most major things I know is you can't make money with such innovations, because there are some people that don't want to make you get money with such innovations. Well, all the project V.6 is in the hand of a great company, and this company decided not to spread the information, and I have to accept it, and that's the deal. But now I want to show you a fully new version. It's physically not identical with V.6, and so we don't have any problems to spread this system worldwide. But before I will show you step by step how to make it really cheap and with only things, I have to tell you a few things very important. One of the major things, please be careful when you work with this technology, because it can be very harmful. You will see it. Plenty of things can happen if you make it too wrong. But on the other side, you cannot make it fail if you make it like I tell you now in the following video. I will work here in very, very poor conditions. So for me it's necessary not to show you all kinds of technology. I'm not a great worker, I'm the thinker. And sometimes in the video you will think, oh man, you can make this better, the quality of your materials is very bad, you cut it with a hand saw, why don't you have very expensive machines here? The deal is very easy. I will show you here in my fully mass here, I will show you it's possible to make it with the easiest tools. It's possible to make it with an amount minus than 50 or 100 euros. You can make a small pyramid only for loading accumulators for RC racing cars. You can make it greater, of course. And I did some greater pyramids, and you cannot believe if you make a pyramid with a diameter of 3.5 meters, you can take out all the light for your house. Well, I have to excuse my very bad English, and so I hope you are not angry if some of my words they sound a little bit stupid. I'm not stupid, but my English is that bad, so excuse me. What I want to tell you before I want to show you to make a pyramid is a very, very important thing for me too. I don't want to make the same mistake like last time. I don't want to discuss with anybody if this is a fake or not. You have to decide if it's a fake And if you think it's a fake, okay, it's a fake. If you think you will make a pyramid and you will get out energy, it's your deal and you can do it. But all the copyrights of this video are in my hand, and I please you not to spread this video in pay sites. I never asked anybody for any donation, and I don't want to sell this pyramid technology next time, because I have what the men have. Sorry, it's a bad sentence. I will not cut it now because you will get the uncutted versions, but I have everything I want, and you can't lure me with money. So if anybody wants more information, please collect the information from the internet. I will not answer stupid questions. I will not answer any questions. And if I will answer any questions, I will decide to whom. And there is a very easy possibility for me. I know most guys in the Over Unity scene, and I know their names, and I will only answer to people which are active working in Over Unity, for example. I'm the greatest fan from Clancer, for example. Maybe you know this guy. He had plenty of real good things posted on YouTube. These are guys, they are working, they are not speaking, they are working, really working. And my great respect goes to you. On the other side, I want to greet Mr. Pese from Germany. I like him. I don't know him. I never saw him personally, but I like his style to promote informations, and he's a conserver. He conserves all data and everything what's impossible, everything what's necessary in the world of Over Unity you can get from Mr. Pese. On the other side, I want to greet Mr. Stefan Hartmann from Berlin. Mr. Hartmann, I have very bad news for you. This machine I will show you, it's not Over Unity. I wrote it in your overunity.de forum because now we know very much about the working function, the working principle of the pyramid, and we decided it couldn't be any Over Unity, because Over Unity in the main meaning would mean you put some energy somewhere inside and you get more than you put it inside. But this is like a power plant, a water power plant in a river. So the energy we collect here with the pyramid is still here. The energy is part of our life, and I will show you in the next minutes where the energy is coming from. And all we do with this small pyramid is to collect energy, which is every time 24 hours a day here on our planet. And so it would be not possible to get a great prize from you, because we don't have anything about any Over Unity here in our pyramid. Well, let's start to make a pyramid. The most important thing, not in reality, but the basic thing is to construct a pyramid. And now the first real important thing will follow. Please forgive me, all the measurements I will tell you now in this following video, they are in millimeters, centimeters and meters. So if you're coming from a foot and inch zone, you have to calculate your own measurements. So all the data, volts, amperes, they are international, but millimeters, centimeters and meters are important in the following video. First, I wanted to make two videos, one in German and one in English, but I stopped yesterday in the evening because my German video was very complicated, and to translate it word by word, it was too much work for me. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, go to the next cut. We will start with the pyramid. The first thing we need is a pyramid. So maybe you remember this is my old V6 configuration. You have to construct a pyramid, and it's not very important if the measurements are not at the millimeter. I kept some 20 millimeters metal tubes and made a pyramid with a diameter of 1000 to 1000 to 1000 millimeters. So it's very easy to make. You need only 8 pieces of iron with 1000 millimeters, and then you have to cut a few times so that you get a dimension of 1000 millimeters by 1000 millimeters, and all the pieces into the high, they are also 1000 millimeters. So if you measure all sides, including the high side, they are every time 1000 millimeter. This will give you an angle of about approximately 60 degrees. On the upper side of the pyramid you can see a metal ring. This ring, you can trust me, is absolutely useless. For me it's very easy to transport the pyramid, because with the gypsum plates on the pyramid you will get a great amount of weight. And as I'm a soloist, I'm alone, I have to carry the pyramid a few times to make some checks outside. I will make it with a small tractor, and I will connect it on the ring with a chain to transport it. You don't need this ring, but if you install some ring, it not decreases the output of energy. There is absolutely nothing important about the pyramid. Only 2 things are very important. You have to coat the outsides, minimum 3 outsides of the pyramid, with mineralic material. In my case I used some gypsum plates with 19 millimeters thickness. So the frames on the front side, the angles on the front side, they are only for optical viewing. They are not useless. They are useless too. Sorry. In the inside, you will see the following items. Now, in this moment, we don't have anything inside, but on the top of the pyramid, I welded a little bit of tube inside to mount all the internal things we will put in the next few minutes. Well, maybe you can see I took a little bit of new color on the pyramid to make it a little bit more beautiful. Okay, welcome again in my mess. Let's start to make a pyramid. There are 3 real necessary things you have to do, and all the measurements I will tell you now, they are guilty for a pyramid with 1000 millimeters. That's exactly 1 meter diameter of your pyramid. If you will make some greater pyramids, you will find on my website on www.comshop.tv you will find a special formula where you can make it greater. Well, the pyramid isn't following all the physical principles. That's one of the greatest problems. And if you study electricity, you will know there is a source, there's drain, there are some volts, there are some amperes, there's power. And I found out very, very difficult systems. And I found out very Okay, let's start to make a pyramid. Maybe you allow that I have to say a few words to the pyramid itself. It's not necessary to weld the frame of the pyramid. You can also use some screws, you can use everything. But it's very important that all the metal parts in the pyramid, they are well connected together, because the pyramid will be useful as earth, as negative ground for all your further work. And if you don't earth the pyramid really, but if there will be one piece of the pyramid not connected to the earth, you will get a real great decrease of energy, and you will see it. So the first major errors, if you make some pyramids which are not giving the right, you can see it here. The first piece, we destructed the insulation. The second piece, okay, there was one small point. destructing insulation, and it's really absolutely necessary not to ruin the insulation, because if you get the short circuit here, nothing will work and you will stay angry, and I know what happens in this case. All the people will think, okay, just another cheat. Well, now we have two possibilities. We can wind it clockwise or we can wind it counterclockwise. It doesn't make any effect if you do it clockwise or counterclockwise. The only difference is if you make it on the inside coil clockwise, you have to make it on the outside coil clockwise too. So I decide to make it in this direction. So if you see, I will turn the tube clockwise. And now, very important, please count please count the rounds. So we started with round number 1, number 2, and every time when I get back to the hole, number 3, number 4, I will count. Number 5. So now we come to the next very important point. Please stop to wind the coil approximately 5 to 7 millimeters before you come to the small hole here. I hope you can see it. Now in this moment it's very important to get some insulation tape, and it's very important too to make the coil as near as possible together. So it's not very good if you have some great spaces between. So it would help to make another winding instead of having some place here. The better you make this coil, the better the power will come out of the pyramid. So now with the next problem. It's very bad organized, this video, because we don't have any insulation tape here at hand. Okay, we have to use this one. We need the insulation tape only for a small moment. You will see why. Because we have to block our coil not to open when we go through the other hole. So I hope this works. Another very tricky part of the whole pyramid. We have to cut off here. If you ruin the insulation when you go through the next small hole, you have to do all the work again. But we will check it on the end. And so I hope we will not ruin the coil in our first attempt. It's a little bit tricky, and please, of course, work slowly or work with brain. So the possibility is here to make it not twice. It's a little bit tricky. Don't use any tools to make this, because with all kinds of tools you can make more damage than it will have. Then it will help you. You see, it's really tricky. But with a little bit of practice, you will keep this. The major goal is not to destroy the insulation. So normally at demonstration mode we will destroy it, but maybe we have some good luck. We will see it in a few seconds. Okay, so I think we can accept this. Put the coil together. Okay, and then we have to check our construction, and we have to count the windings again, because I'm not 100% sure if everything is okay. So we keep our multimeter. So we go through. Okay, what happens? Sounds damaged. Not a good day to get damaged. Okay. Now it's working. So now we have to check the metal of the coil. Okay. Looks good. Metal and metal. And of course, coil of coil, it can't be destructed, but it's only a counter check. So we can guarantee that our insulation is okay. We can try it also with a high ohmage. Okay, 1.2. Sounds great. 20K, 200K, 2 meg, 20 meg. Okay. Okay. Well, we have 97 windings now. It's a little bit less than I have normally. Normally, the last try I had 104 and 107. So we will not get our 14 to 15 volts. We will get about 10, 10.5, 11, 11.5 volts. We have to see. But after the coil was working on the first attempt and I didn't destroy the insulation, I don't want to wind it again. So this little bit of space, it's only a loss of energy, nothing else. It's very important to keep the insulation tape away before we go to the next step. So, and if I would have better eyes, I would see the end, and here it is. Here it is. Okay. So we don't need this anymore. Okay. And now we prepare us for the next, and in reality the only real dangerous moment, because now we have to work with high voltage or with high frequency. You can decide it for yourself. Prepare for the next part. Next step. Now we have to keep the grate tube and the coil together. So we will put it inside for approximately 2 or 3 millimeters. Not too much, because we need the place on the other side for the other piece too. And in this case, we will make it very cheap, of course, with insulation tape. It's a very cheap construction, you see. And as I told you in the beginning, I want to keep it as easy as you can do it. So I don't want to discuss with some people if you need some very expensive machines or something else. I want to show you, you can make this even in Africa without any tool. So, and now we prepare for the only real dangerous part of all the thing. Because now we need some quartz sand, you know it from V6. And we have to fill in quartz sand, but that's not the problem to fill some quartz sand inside. It's the problem, we have to fill it in rightly. This was one part of the secrets we had in 2006-2007, and nobody knows what the quartz sand will do inside of all the technique. And maybe you can remember, we used quartz sand and salt water to start the reaction. But I found out the salt water is counterproductive because it's eating the copper and I tried to find a better solution, and now we'll show you the better solution. But for this we have to replace the camera a little bit to get some new place for seeing something, and we have to organize a few things here. So what we need is some pieces of wood, because now we are working with a high voltage or high frequency. You can decide it for yourself. And we want to insulate all that a little bit. Oh look, there are some neodymium magnets. I searched more than 6 months and now I found them. It was a good idea to make this video, so this gave me back my magnets. Okay, so now you see what I built here. I know it looks very poor, but it's okay if it looks poor. This wire we will put very far away from the body, because now we have to decide which kind of electricity we will use. Well, the next part is a little bit complicated, and I will show it you with a video by hand. What we have here now is a power supply, a little bit too great for this what I want to do now, but I don't have a functionist and smaller one. We need an old CB, what's the name, transceiver, and we need an SWR meter and a small amplifier with 35 or 40 or 50 watts. So what did we do now? We try to get some high voltage and high frequency into our tube. So if you can look, we go with the cable out of the CB, we go into the amplifier, from the amplifier to the SWR meter, and from the SWR meter we go to our produced coil. Well, on the downside, the wire inlet, we gave the hot wire, and the grounding I connected to the outside copper tube. That's very important, because now we want to fill some quartz sand inside of the tube, directly between this distance between the wire, the coil and the outside tube. And it's very important if we do this. While we do this, we need the high power, the high energy, the high voltage and the high frequency inside of the tubes. Why? I found out that if you fill some quartz sand inside, the quartz sand will get some compression, some inert compression, and you cannot produce any electricity if the quartz particles are laying around as they like. But if you fill in the quartz sand under a high voltage condition, the quartz will fall inside directly. I don't know the name in English. They are formed. You will see that in the next part of the video. Hello again. We have Saturday, June 25th of 2011. Now, after a little bit of spaghetti, I will make the second half of producing the pyramide, and meanwhile the main actor arrived. One sack of quartz sand. It's a very cheap product. Normally it's used for the filters in swimming pools. If you buy some quartz sand, please be careful that you get some dry sand, and that the corn is not greater than 2 millimeter each piece. So you have to control the amount of quartz inside have to be very good, is not grounded properly. Well, that's the first thing. If you will make greater pyramids, more than 1000 millimeters, all the measurements I will show you now, they are of course different. But now I want to show you pyramid with 1000 millimeters, and if you're interested in the formula to make some greater ones, you will find them in the internet in the next few days. Well, the most important thing we make now is our so-called reactor. Please sorry for the very bad specification of this item, but I don't know a better name for this. This is the part where the energy is getting produced, and it's one of the most important parts inside the whole pyramid. So you have to work a little bit careful, and please give care for your health. If you work with machines, I have to say it, be careful, don't spend your blood for this pyramid. Well, first time we need a little bit of copper tube with a diameter of 29-30 millimeters and a length of 29 centimeters. It's a normal copper tube you can get everywhere in all the hardware stores, even in your country. The second piece we will use, these are some, I don't know the name in English, these are some small pieces you can weld copper tubes inside, and in this case you have some screw inside, so it's a normal component I think you can get on all plumber stores. What we do is we want to make the reactor of this small piece of copper, and of course you can make it a little bit slower or a little bit greater, but it's very important to follow the steps I will show you, because you can increase or decrease the amount of produced energy enormous. It's a very important thing to tell you now in this moment. The most things of the pyramid technology, they are not real catchable into the law of physics, into the law of electronic, into the law of electric. So some things will sound really stupid to you. And most of the experiments people made with my pyramid, they start because the people think too technic. That's one of the major grounds, because the people think they have to follow all laws of physics, they have to follow all laws of logic. But please, if you make the pyramid now, forget all your know-how about technology and make what I will show you. Some things, they are very stupid and sinless, but you will see on the end they will give you a sin. And I try to answer the most questions. Where is the energy coming from, and what happens? I will answer all to your questions, but first give me a chance to show you all I know about this technology. Well, first we have to weld this piece on this side, because we want to make here, for me, so-called reactor, and we need this small piece here. On the other side, I will show you we need another copper tube, and we will cut it now. But I will not show you. I will not show you to cut the copper tube, because I think you know it yourself how it's working. To get the small copper tube into the great copper tube, we have to drill here a little bit. That's because this small parts, I hope you can see it, they have a small ring inside. So if you weld some copper tube here inside, you cannot put it through. But in our case it's very necessary to put it through, so we have to widen the hole a little bit. So if this is done, we can try with our copper tube. Now it's a little bit too great, it's too long, we have to cut it. Okay, so if this is possible, the next step is done. Well, next step. We have the great tube with 29 centimeters, the small tube with a diameter of 10 millimeter and a length of 36 centimeters, 360 millimeters. And these two parts of reducers. Everything here you can get in every plumber, in every hardware shop. Well, the next very important part is to put all kinds of oxidations away from the copper. Oxidation now in this phase would be very bad for the whole construction, and I don't know why, but I can show you in a machine who is running 2.5 years, there will not appear any oxidation if the pyramid is running. But if you don't clean the oxidation before you start the pyramid, I don't know why, but it decreases the power of approximately 10 to 15%. And this is on a dimension of 1000 millimeters. With a small pyramid, it's very, very much amount. So I use some steel wool to make the tube clean. I never tried it to make it with chemicals, because I am the good old fan of mechanic cleaning. The better you can make it, the better it will work. Looks very good for the moment, and it makes a lot of dirt on the hand. Next part, before we weld all the system, we have to make some small holes for the wires to put in and out. In this case, we have the problem. We need a little bit more on one side of the small copper type tube, so you can use 2 centimeters, 25 millimeters, and on the other side you can use 10 millimeters. Now it's very important to mark the holes where you have to make 2 small holes inside of this tube, and I will keep the line here straight on the line where this piece is ending. So I will mark it. Okay, and on the other side I will mark it too. There are some better possibilities to mark it, but you saw my shack is very poor, and also my tools are poor. So, okay, the next thing we need, 2 small holes. Okay, 3 minutes and 2 bloody fingers later we had 2 holes now in this small copper tubes. The diameter of the hole is not that important. I used a driller with 5 millimeters. On the end we have to seal the holes, but I will show you how to do this. Well, these are the most important parts. Okay, next thing is to weld this tube to this fitting. It's very important that the hole here is in the center of this piece. Well, after half an hour of searching for some fire, don't burn your fingers. The next important thing is to make the coil. For the coils you have plenty of possibilities. I will keep a normal installation wire for house installation. It's a normal copper wire. It's a diameter of 1.5 millimeters. I don't want to make promotion for the company, but maybe you will see it. There are 100 meters inside, 1.5 millimeters thick, and the color of course is black. The color doesn't play any role. I keep only the cheap one. The next part I want to show you, I have to check if it's very hot. It's a little bit too hot now. The next very important part of the pyramid construction is the winding. You can use all kinds of wires. You can use thicker wires with less windings, but you can use also thinner wires with higher windings. And I found out the great difference between the different wire types is the amount of voltage you will get. So if you keep very thin wires, and you make very much windings, you will get more voltage, but very, very less amperes. If you keep some thicker wires, you get less volts, but of course more amperes. So in our demonstration we want to construct a pyramid which is producing between 14 to 16 volts, and I need a minimum of 1.5 ampere, so I decided to keep the 1.5 millimeter wire. Now it's a little bit tricky to construct the piece. The first very important thing is to put the wire here in the inside of the tube without damaging the insulation. It's very important that you will not damage the insulation, so it's a very good idea to put out everything sharp out of the small hole we drilled. And it's very important, absolutely very important, that you start with the side where you have more tube, because you will see on the end of the winding it's a little bit tricky to get the other side of the wire here through, and so it's better to make the great deal before you wind your coil. So this can use a few minutes, and it's very important that you don't ruin the insulation of the wire. So this could be a little bit tricky, and I don't want you to laugh with me, so I will come back if this impossible part is made. Well, on the third attempt, the amount of quartz inside have to be very great. So in some countries I saw quartz sand from very, very poor and low quality, and of course it's very necessary to have some good quartz. Well, before I was to lunch I showed and told you the most important part, and be really careful, it's a very dangerous part following now. We have to fill in the quartz sand into our reactor, and the problem is we have to fill in the sand while we use some high voltage or high frequency. So you can decide. I have two possibilities to fill in the sand. The last 3 or 4 greater pyramids, I made it with a high voltage transformator, which is used on oil heating systems. It's the transformator which makes the ignition, what's the name in English? It will make, what's the name? I don't know the name in English. Okay, I didn't find the real name in a few minutes, but I think you know what I mean. It's a transformator which will make 20 to 25 kilovolt, and for the small pyramid it's absolutely too dangerous, because you can control it. The quartz sand will get electrical too, and you can get real bad shocks if you fill in the sand. Of course, we will not fill in the sand with the hand, so we will make a special tool to fill in the sand. But it's very important still to keep care when you make it with a CB transceiver, because the voltage and the frequency is really high too. I will show it. So my multimeter will go into the error mode when I keep the microphone, and we will fill the sand inside. So it's a very dangerous and a very tricky work. Please be aware for your healthness. Okay, the first thing we have to control is if we have some output to the antenna. And for this I use this SWR meter to control the power output, and of course to control the SWR, the so-called standing wave. It's absolutely normal that we cannot reach any SWR inside this system, because there's absolutely nothing right inside our tube system for the antenna to make good swinging. But it's not necessary, and we don't want to waste too much time if we press the button and if we see the power output, because if we make this more than 2 minutes, you have to buy a new ZB or a new amplifier, because there is coming too much power back into the machine, and this will ruin your equipment within 2 or 3 minutes. Well, what I want to show you is the output to our construction now. So we should have now a power about approximately 20 watts. So we have to control it. We need power, 20 watts. Okay, we get more than 20. So you can see we have approximately 22, 23 watts. And of course, what I told you, if I make a calibration process, this is the forward power, and the returning power is equal to the forward power. This is normal because we don't have any good possibility for swinging inside of our tube system. But this is not the problem we have. The problem we have is to make our coils powered and to save our body from the high frequency, from the high voltage. So in the next set I will show you the power between the coil and the tube. It's unbelievable, but I can show it. Okay, now we have it here. All we need is our multimeter, and I will get the greatest possible setup. So it's, I hope we can see it. Okay, we can see it good. So okay, it's not the best. You see, we have 1 volt without anything, so you cannot trust this multimeter to 100%, but it's better than my old one. And maybe you can remember there were plenty of people very sad as I showed them my old multimeter, because they thought I will give some power into the pyramid while I demonstrated it at 2006, 2007. Well, you can see there's a little bit voltage rest in the coil, and now we will keep the microphone. You hear the relay from the amplifier. So, and if we go nearby our demonstration, there is nothing. Okay. So we have some great problem, and we have to fix the problem. So now the error was found. We have some shorty inside of our construction. Well, I want to show it now. If we activate, you see we have no contact, but we have a great radiation here, and there are some positions I can show you. I don't know what I show now. That's the problem, because I don't see into the camera. Now I do see it. So if I go for a distance between 20-25 centimeters, maybe 30 centimeters, and if I go nearby the coil, you will see nothing will happen. So we don't have any contact. But if we make a contact, so we are over range. And this is very necessary. This is absolutely necessary to control this effect before you put in the quartz sand. Okay, in the next step we will tape the microphone switch. We will tape the microphone switch to power. You hear the relay. And as we have this now, we have to work very fast because we have to save our transceiver. So I had here some piece of plastic, and I put the quartz sand inside. Please don't try it with a newspaper or something else. You are not well isolated. And you will see, if we fill this very slowly, you will hear a very, very complicated sound. And you see, the pieces are jumping directly into the tube. Maybe you hear it. There's a noise now inside. And I think if you make this under electricity, they will find the right position inside of the tube. Don't touch the tube now with your fingers or your hand. And please be careful, the quartz sand have to be absolutely dry. You see the smoke. In my case, I put it at 30 minutes into the oven at 180 degrees to make him really dry. So it's unbelievable how much you can put inside. And every time when I make this, I get a little bit headache. So I think it's the radiation from the antenna system. I get a little bit problems with my eyes. I cannot see very sharp. So we have to make it faster and faster. So it's very important not to steer and not to push, because if you make a if you compress it, you destroy the positioning of the quartz crystals. So the most tricky part is done. Please don't forget, don't steer and don't shake the tube now. It's very important not to shake it and not to steer it and not to make any compression inside. Of course, we have one problem left, and you will see it in the next few seconds. there is too much inside. So there are two possibilities to put it away. But first of all, it's very important to put all the electricity away. If the filling is done, you can put away the CP transceiver, you can put everything away you had before. Now it's very important to change our setup, to go to the next step, to the closing of the system. Now we have to put out the amount of too much material. For this case I have some very cheap de-welder. Maybe you know the system. You press here, you produce a little bit of vacuum, and it's absolutely okay for the quartz sand here. You see, the most is done, and now the final and most important thing. No, it's a joke, it's not very important, because now you get the reward for working okay, working proper. Because I told you the inside tube have to stay in the maximum in the center. If you don't keep care for this, you will not be able to get the second part on the tube. And you see, in my case, it could be a small problem. It could be a small problem. I have to show where's the camera. But we are absolutely okay in the center. We can make this without any great compression. And it's not necessary to make compression to the whole system. It's only necessary that you're in the center of all. And as I told you, don't steer and don't compress the quartz. Of course you can transport him, but you have to make a mark where is upside and where is downside, because you don't have to change the direction of the tube. It's not good for the quartz inside. So I make a small arrow. This is up, that we know what's the right direction. From now on I will not put it somewhere on the table. I will every time control the real direction, and we don't shake it, we don't steer. So in this case I will use my two pieces of wood as transport possibility for the stay. If your reactor will fall down somewhere, you have to resand him, put new sand inside, and make the last step again. Don't think you didn't damage him if you will steer or if this will fall down. It's absolutely necessary not to shake, not to steer, and not to shock this piece now. So, if we put it everything together, there's a final step to do. We have to close the entrance holes of the coil with a normal 2-component glue. It's very important that we not get any humidity into the coil. I don't like this poor ugly smelling shit, but we cannot help. So we have to glue here. It doesn't matter which glue. In my case it's one of the cheapest one. You can waste the material because it's very cheap, smelling like fresh urine. Of course you have to make it on both sides, but if you turn the coil, please make it very slowly and without any shocking and without any shaking, of course, because it's the problem. The sand inside now is now in the right position. I hope so. We will see it when we collect everything together. In this moment where we did the gluing work, I can show you a very interesting effect I cannot explain, but I think it's not necessary to explain the effect. It's only a so-called control effect to check if everything is connected correctly. Well, you have to put one wire straight ahead, and you have to mount, so I can show it here. You can mount the other side of the wire to the minus of your multimeter, and you can keep the multimeter into your hands. So I cannot show it really, so I hope to try to. I put this one, and when I keep my hand to the outside tube, it shows me 1.8, 1.9 volts. But you can believe me, you cannot glow any LED, you cannot do nothing. It's only, I don't know, I cannot explain. I think it's the sand inside who is doing something. Maybe he's loaded a little bit from the high voltage before. I cannot explain, but it's very interesting. So I can show you, if I keep the plus directly, I get also 1.7, 1.8, but if I keep my body between, I get a little bit more than before. So it seems that the quartz inside and the coil inside will do something I cannot explain, but believe me, I don't want to explain it. It's only a small check if everything is okay. If you can see this phenomenon in this stadium, I can guarantee you your pyramid will work in your home if you construct it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the most terrible work is done. While the epoxy glue is hardening, let me give you an idea why this construction is working. First, I have to say I cannot guarantee you my principal function, because nobody can prove it. We can only see it is working, and we can only think about its functions. But I want to tell you what I found out in the time I made my work with the pyramids. Well, in the intro I told you we are not speaking about over unity, because over unity, I think it's something absolutely different. What we are doing is a mix, I think, between the magnetic field of the Earth, some kind of frequency inside our Earth, and the major important thing, you will see it on the end and on the demonstration of the pyramid, the so-called, I don't know all the names in English, but there are some water lines behind the ground where the water is flowing. And maybe you know it, if you build some house, some people, they are very sensible for these water lines, bad lines and good lines. It's a kind of religion. Some people are laughing about these things, some people, they keep it very, very serious. When they build some houses, they keep somebody who is able to check it with two metal pieces. Maybe you saw it. The name in German is Wünschelrute. I don't know the name in English. And some people, when they construct their house, when they build their homes, they try to find out the good and the bad places. Not to sleep on bad places and not to cook on bad places. And this was one of the greatest secrets in 2006 and 2007, one of my major secrets. I didn't tell anybody that these water lines, they are existentially necessary to give the pyramid some energy. So we can believe three things. On the first part, it's absolutely necessary to bring the quartz to any moving. So it's could be some micro moving, I don't know, but quartz is very sensible for swingings. And if we have the quartz inside proper installed, so it's absolutely possible to speed this quartz inside the tube. I cannot explain it really. I tried it with metal tubes, I tried it with plastic tubes. It doesn't work. It will work only with copper, and it will only work with quartz inside. So there may be a possibility between these materials, so they react. I tried it without insulation, so I made some coils without plastic insulation. I made some coils with textile insulation. Without insulation there is no work, absolutely no work. With insulation it doesn't depend on if it's plastic or if it's textile, if it's black hard oil like bitumen. It doesn't depend. There is no more, no less energy producing. But it is necessary that you bring the pyramid into a correct north-south poling, and it is absolutely necessary to stay on a so-called water line or bed line, like you tell it. Well, my problem is I cannot feel these lines, so I have in our village somebody who did this, and it's very impressive because I checked it years ago with a few people. Everybody told me he can do this job with the two metal pieces to find the good and the bad lines. And I have some points here in my home, in my garden, and on other secret places. I did more tests with different people, and I marked the places, but I marked them in a kind you cannot see it. So I kept small nails on all points where the people say, okay, here are good places or here are bad places. I pointed some small nails with 80 millimeters, and I pushed them absolutely into the earth so nobody can see it on the lawn, for example. 2 weeks later, I invited the next one. It was a very old man. He's able to do this. He makes it here in the whole district for all people who are believing on this technology. And he did the job again. And it's unbelievable. He wasn't able to see the nails, but he found absolutely the same spots as some people weeks before. So for me, it's a proof that all the discussions about good and bad lines under the earth, they are not a joke and not a bad nightmare from some medias. And the third and most important proof is, you will see it in the outside demonstration. In these places you get energy without end, and that's the incredible thing. Well, let me say true, I knew this years before, but at 2006, 2007 I was very scared about all the people, thousands of people. Everybody wanted to be my friend, everybody wanted to have some information. I had telephone calls from the Philippines, I had telephone calls from the United States. Universities invited me to present my pyramid, and maybe you remember at this time it was very important for me to prove that this technology is an old ancient technology. So in my young time I was a great friend from Eric from Däniken, one of my all-stars, the man who made the pyramids in reality, because as I was a boy, as I was a child, it was the most important lecture for me to read something from Eric from Däniken. And maybe you know another Austrian author. Däniken is from Swiss, we know. There is Reinhard Habeck, and he wrote the wonderful book electricity for the Pharaoh, light for the Pharaoh, at German Licht für den Pharao. And this was a book, it nailed me really, because the idea that the old Egyptians had some electricity, it was a great idea for me, and because it's not everything if you think they had some light, and there were some people proving that you can make light with a glass bulb you see in Dendera. The idea was, if they can construct pyramids, if they can produce energy from pyramids, what did they do with the energy at this time? And this is the most incredible question of our mankind. Well, I will stop with my Egypt and pyramid philosophy, because I know with this discussion I get the people laughing every time, because they say, okay, you're a fool, you can't produce any energy with a pyramid, you speak about things you cannot prove. But if I'm able now to show you that you can make energy with a pyramid, I am able to ask you why. And I am sure I'm not the inventor of this, and I'm sure this technology exists more than 1,000 years. Well, there is one question: where is the proof for the old ancient technology? In this case, I can tell you something. The most things inside the pyramids 1,000 years ago, they were from metal, of course, because you need metal to produce electricity. And if it is true, we have a real great problem with the pyramids, because the water lines beyond the earth, they change from time to time. So even we know North and South Pole, they are wandering, they are changing from time to time. And maybe it was fact that the pyramid stopped to produce energy because the lines changed beyond the pyramid. So in this moment, the pyramid will be without value. There are two possibilities what you can do against it. You can make the next pyramid near the old one. Great idea, because if you look to Egypt, you see plenty of pyramids, small and greater ones, and they are nearby in the same area. And I don't want to speak with you about the fully missing of any mummies inside. I don't want to discuss with you if this would be graves or not, but it could be that the pyramids stopped to produce. So we know the very first pyramid, it was a very, very scary technology. And a few meters far away, they built the next one, then they built the next one, and we know that we don't know anything. That's the major problem. We don't know anything about pyramids. We only know that what the people are saying us, the scientists say to us, and my problem is I'm not a scientist. I'm not a scientist. I'm a very, very, very normal man, and it doesn't have any value. So a few years ago, 2 years, 3 years ago, I stopped to discuss about the ancient technology. I stopped to make pyramids in the same inside design like the pyramids, for example in Gizeh. Maybe you can remember my V6, version 6 was constructed with a condensator in a 45 degrees angle. I tried to give the great stairways in the Cheops pyramid, I want to give him a sin. And I found out the angle about 42, 45 degrees was the best angle to produce capacitive electricity in my pyramid. With V.13 you will see it doesn't really matter, because now we get energy in a kind we didn't have with V.6, but the design is absolutely without any ancient idea. So I used all the modern materials, and I tried to leave the street from the ancient story. I hope you're not angry because I'm doing this, but it doesn't make any sense if you want to pray to the people, if you want to tell them something, they will not believe it. And I'm sure 99.8% of you, of all the visitors in this moment, will not believe the story I will show you today too. But it's not my problem. You can prove it and you can try it. Well, all we do here is a one-day project. So maybe you will see it today in the morning. I started to produce the pyramid. Of course, the construction, the pyramid construction, it's still ready. But I want to show you, if you have some metal construction with gypsum plates, you can make in one day. In one day, absolutely clean and easy, you can make in one day the first production of energy. Well, meanwhile, the two-component glue should be hard, and we go to the next step. We make a small condensator to run our pyramid. To return and to ask to give answers for the possible questions. What did we do now? We made a coil in a small copper tube. We kept this in a greater copper tube. We filled quartz sand inside. We closed it and we glued it. And the trick on all this thing is, part number one, the most important thing is, you have to put in the quartz sand either under high voltage or under high frequency and high voltage in mix. And you can believe me, the not so dangerous way to put the quartz sand inside is with an old CB transmitter. I did some greater pyramids experiments only with 25, 28, 19 kilovolts. It's a little bit dangerous, so I got some stroke for an instant, and you can believe me, the day was gone for me. I didn't have any joke on the same day, so it's a little bit harmful to do this. When we connect everything, you have to keep care too, because you will see if there is no load on your coil, you will get voltage about 300, 400, 450 volts. So it could be a little bit dangerous to handle the pyramid if you transport it, if you put it on your area where you want to have it. In this case, it's very important to make a small resistor, a very powerful resistor with a few watts, and it's very important to shorten all the contacts. If you work on the pyramid, if you do anything on the pyramid, if you move it, so you're every time on the secured side if you short fuse it, and we will show it in the next part. But there's another idea I have to tell you. Maybe you can remember to the videos at 2006 and 2007. You saw plenty of things with magnets, and you saw everything a little bit complicated with salt water and so on. Well, I can't say it's true. It was a little bit cheat inside, because I had some security problems in this time. And of course, after I sold the whole idea, I had the problem, it wasn't allowed for me to say anything about the system. But the people, they were very aggressive to me to tell them something. And so I did. I gave them some hints that they have something to think and something to do. And the result you saw. One of the best ideas, for example, was my security, my small security inside with the magnet. So all the clever people in these times, they knew there is no magnet necessary. But I saw videos with old men showing the function of my pyramid with magnets, and I was very impressed, because it's an easy trick to see who is a fake and who is not a fake. And you can believe me, with a magnet you cannot do anything inside the pyramid. And yes, some readers thought there could be connected a reed contact. And that's all. That was the trick. There was only a reed contact inside the copper tube. And with the reed contact, I had to open or to close the circuit. So the pyramid produced energy before too. but there was no output on the wires because the reed contact was open. And this was a little bit security for me to find out who is cheating me, because I had plenty of contacts that told me, I have the pyramids 4.5 meters, I make 600 volts, and you cannot believe what happened. And it was a very hard time. So it was for me a very great problem too. Whom can I trust, and where are the people which are okay? Where are the leechers? Where are the collectors? And you said on the first line, you saw it. There were plenty of people not really friendly, and there are some guys out there. They have only one job: to find cheats everywhere. But it's incredible. These are the guys that never took any tools in their hands. They never spreaded information to others. They only make bad and terrible noise. And to these guys, I want to say one sentence. It would be better if you make your hands a little bit dirty, walk into a shack and make something. Maybe it's a foolish idea, but maybe you find something nobody knows before. But only sitting on the computer and making bad winds, it's nothing which brings us all together a little bit forward. And please, ladies and gentlemen, think to Fukushima. It was one of the major things why I decided to spread my idea now, because we cannot wait for the next 2 or 3 Fukushimas. And please believe me, the Japanese people, I know them personally. The Japanese people, they are very, very, very wonderful people. They have a really good technology. They have a mentality. They are workers, real fine workers. And if some catastrophic accident will happen in Japan, you can believe me, in all the other countries with not this technology standard, there will be worst, if it will happen. And if I think now to all the East countries with the atomic reactors, there are some evenings I cannot sleep very well, because we are now in the last area we will destroy the planet. You can believe it, you can see it, you can look out of the window. I'm living in Austria. I'm living 25 kilometers northeast from Mozarttown, Salzburg. We got some twisters here now in Austria. Nobody knows a twister in all the history before. The weather is changing, everything is changing. Whole Europe is collapsing. Thank you to Greece. It's absolutely difficult in the time now. And now it's really time to do something. I invite you to do something. You can try this, you can spread this, and as I told you, you can do with the invention what you want. Well, but now we spoke enough. Let's work together for the final part, because now it's 2:00 p.m. I want to produce energy this evening. I hope the weather is okay outside. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we are only a few parts away from producing a little bit energy. Well, what did we do now? You see the completed reactor casing. I didn't took on video to make insulation tape on the other side of my little reactor, but I think your fantasy will be enough to know how to make a little bit insulation tape on this side too. And now we have the small tube, and now we need the next material, and it's also a very easy step, because for the next step we need a little piece of plastic tube. And there is not only a plastic tube, sorry, I have to watch what you can see. So there is not only a little bit of plastic tube, it has a diameter, I can say it here straight, 40 millimeters, 4 centimeters. And this is some kind of tube from swimming pools. It's not a very complicated material. You will get it in every hardware store in your country too. And what do we have next? We have, don't know the name in English, but it's an end piece, a piece to keep the tube silent. Well, what are we doing now? We have here 20 millimeters, you know, and we have the double dimensions in the plastic tube. What we make now, I say it very shortly, we will make the copper tube inside in the center of the plastic tube, and on the plastic tube we will make the same amount of windings that we had into the copper tube. Remember, in the copper tube we had 97 windings, so we will make 97 windings here too. The end piece is only for the mounting on the end, so we don't need it now. But what we can do, we can mark the position of the cap, that we know the right moment, the right point where we can start with the winding. Well, if we took the winding inside the copper tube counterwise, we have to do it outside too. It will not work if you change the winding direction inside and outside. I don't know why, but it's fact. I think you can imagine how to make a winding. So I will make this winding and I will be back on video, because I have the problem that we have meanwhile a little bit more than 1 hour. I don't know if we can spread that all at YouTube in one file, and I don't want to make too much files. Well, now we have a little accident because my wire was too small, too short. Now we have 84 windings, but we need 97. It's a good possibility to show you how to fix such problems. Please don't smile, but I will weld these two pieces together to get hopefully the right amount of windings. Of course, I have plenty of wires in difficult colors here, but I'm a poor man. I want to save my resources because I need the material for other pyramids, for other dimensions, and so we will trick. And for all, it's a good thing to control if this will affect the effect. Okay, now the wires are soldered together. I don't want to isolate it now because maybe we can try something. So maybe I can make a grip down point to check anything. So we have 84 and we need 97. Let's go ahead. After we wind it, it's very important to fix the whole coil with insulation tape, because I found out this outside coil should not be able to swing. So if you don't fix it, you get the problem that you produce thermal temperature. Not heat, but a few degrees, 2 or 3 degrees. It's every time warmer than the outside environment. And I found out if you produce any kind of warmth, it reduces the energy you take out from the pyramid. So you can roll it really hard with insulation tape so that the coil itself cannot move on the tube. So that's now the point. We stay here. What's coming next? The next piece, you know, we have to keep it every time slowly. Don't shock it, don't steer it. The next step is we have to put the copper tube inside of this piece. For this we use the end piece, and we will drill a hole with 10 millimeters to put in this through. Well, and finally we make our condensator. It's very important to get some clean and reduced stuff outside the pyramid. For this we keep a piece of plastic. It's a plastic wheel, you can see it. And in this plastic wheel I got approximately 11 meters of copper wire. You know, my special copper wire, 1.5 millimeters. Well, we have the first round with approximately 11 meters. On the end we keep a little bit free because we have to cut a little bit to synchronize the capacitor. And if we made the first coil, we make the second coil. I will make it in another color that you can see the difference. It's very important not to keep any metal for the capacitor, and it's also very important to give both sides the same length. You can make it 10 meters, of course. It's not necessary to count the windings. It's only necessary to count the meters. And the both coils should have approximately plus minus 10 centimeters the same length. For this we let a little bit free to cut if it's not synchronized. Okay, happy winding. Okay, another 2 minutes and 2 bloody fingers later we had the cap. We drilled the 10 millimeters hole, and now we are able to insert this completely to the point where it's inside. And I told you, be careful, not shake, not steer. And now we can insert this one. So now in this moment you have plenty of ideas what you can do to fix this piece here on site and to fix this. I will do the best I can. I will glue it with my loved 2-component epoxy. Then on the end everything should look like this. I hope you can see it. Here you have one output from the inner coil, output from the inner coil, and here you have the output from the outer coil. And please note that we saved 1/2 turn. Maybe you see it. Oh, where can I put it to the camera that you see it? Okay, here. Input is here, output is on the other side. So we saved a half winding. So we don't have, in reality, we don't have 97, we have 96.5. Well, on the other side, it would be a very good idea to have the same cap like here, but I don't have such a cap and I cannot organize it in the next days, so I will keep this open. It's not absolutely 100% necessary that the inner coil is 100% in the center. I don't know why, but it does not affect very much. If your quartz sand inside is not hard inside, you can repair a damaged inner coil if you give it a short time another high voltage, for example with the CB. But it will not work every time. So if you have the problem that the inner coil, the reactor, is falling down, or you have a great smack on it, it's the best idea to open it, to refill it with quartz and a high voltage and make the same again. So if you look here inside, okay, here's the camera. If you look here inside, you see the downer side of our reactor and the outside coil. What we do now is we make something hopefully working to get this nearby in the center. As I told you, if you have 2 such caps, it would be the better idea. But today we have Saturday and I will not get this kind of cap today. So we have to make something else. The next step is to make the condensator And the last step is the most important step for you, I hope so, would be the connection of all the wires. And for this I have a special system. You cannot make anything fails. Okay, meanwhile I had a very good idea. Stupid but working. I have some small T pieces from copper, and they will fit perfectly to my 10mm tube. And because of this, we will install here inside this piece. This will hold everything in the center. So we put this inside. Okay, so we can see it. It's not a professional idea, but as you see, it will hold the coil absolutely in the center. Well, we will fix this with my best friend, you know, the 2-component glue. Well, it doesn't look so ugly. Well, the next little bit tricky action would be to find the center inside the pyramid. It's a very easy thing. Maybe this is not 100% mathematic what I will show you now, but it's a fact. You have to keep from all the sides the half. And then you have to keep on the right angle. You mark the angle. And on the point where all the lines are meeting, here we have the real center of your pyramid. If you drill a hole here and you've got another angle, you will get inside some lines. And where the lines are meeting inside, there is the burning point, the center point of your pyramid. So you see, the problem with my construction with 60 degrees is the burning point is very low. So if you will make the same thing on the Cheops pyramid, you will see the meeting point, the center point of all the points is the king's chamber. Well, and finally we make our condensator. It's very important to get some clean and reduced stuff outside the pyramid. For this we keep a piece of plastic. It's a plastic wheel, you can see it. And in this plastic wheel I got approximately 11 meters of copper wire. You know, my special copper wire, 1.5 millimeters. Well, we have the first wound with approximately 11 meters. On the end we keep a little bit free because we have to cut a little bit to synchronize the capacitor. And if we made the first coil, we make the second coil. I will make it in another color that you can see the difference. It's very important not to keep any metal for the capacitor. And it's also very important to give both sides the same length. You can make it 10 meters, of course. It's not necessary to count the windings. It's only necessary to count the meters. And the both coils should have approximately plus minus 10 centimeters the same length. For this, we let a little bit free to cut if it's not synchronized. Okay, happy winding. As you can see here, the coil, the capacitor is ready. I have 10 meter and 85 centimeters on both sides, the inner coil and the outer coil. Please notice, the outer coil is definitely a little bit shorter, optically shorter than the inner coil, because we have outside a greater diameter, and in this case the piece is earlier at the end. So I started good 3 or 4 millimeters in front, because I knew this effect, and it doesn't matter that here is a little bit of the inner coil opened. It's very important to let these two contacts absolutely open. So we can cut a few millimeters, or we can weld a few millimeters on for the capacitor to synchronize, but this is a job we will do absolutely on the end. So maybe you can remember I had some copper plates for a capacitor in V.6, and now I make it a little bit more energizing, and it's a very interesting effect. If you keep some plates to as capacitor, you don't get this clean DC voltage, but if you keep some coil, you get a very proper and a very strong DC voltage. Of course, we can try this capacitor if he's working, and I will make a few experiments with this capacitor, because I have to make a few measurements if he's okay, physically okay, and then we go to the next step to assemble all things together and produce a little bit electricity. Hello and welcome back into my shack, in my mess. Welcome to the second part of TPP. And the first part, we did use more time than we wanted to use. The first part was 1 hour and 42 minutes and 20 seconds uncutted, and I decided to give the whole video for free, because to cut everything would destroy my try to explain everything. So if you got the first part of my video, please control the length of the video. It should be 1 hour, 42 minutes and a few seconds. If it's smaller than I told you now, it's a cutted version, it's not a legal version from my hands, and I prohibited it to cut my video in any kind. The second problem with the first video, I have to say true, I decided not to spread it via YouTube. That's a very easy thing, because I had a great problem on YouTube to cut the video myself into small pieces, and 1 hour and 40 minutes cut it in 12 or 10 or 15 minute pieces. It would be a great amount of work, and I decided to make a streaming video in all 2 parts, and we will find enough servers who want to spread these videos in the next time. So if you see this video, you found some website where it is downloadable, so it's not a problem. I start to spread the videos on my own webpage, but I'm sure I will find some other people who want to spread the video too. But please remember, it's absolutely prohibited to broadcast this video on every pay site. So everything is free. Nobody is allowed to keep any donation for anything. Don't do anything for all kinds of translations or something else. All the work I did have to be free, and nobody is allowed to get any cent for my work now. Okay, well, in the first part we collected and we produced the most important parts from the pyramide. So it was the major work instead. Let me tell you, I lost a bet yesterday, because I took a bet to my wife. I said to her, I can do it in 1 day. I can make the whole pyramid and I can start producing energy in 1 day. But as you saw, Yesterday on Saturday we had very bad weather here in Austria. Today it's the 26th of June 2011. We have 12 degrees centigrade outside. It's raining. For me it's a great problem because on the end of this video I want to show you the pyramid working outside, directly in the center of some lawn. So you can see that everything runs correct. There are no hidden wires or no batteries, no atomic power plants somewhere. But if the weather still gets bad like this, we have to change and we have to find a room in my shack here. I do know two places where we can run the machine, but this would be the worst case scenario. So I hope today in the afternoon we will get the weather to go outside with the pyramid. Well, but now in this moment we are not in the position to produce anything because now we have to assemble all the produced things we made yesterday, and I will show you how to connect it, and it will be a little bit tricky, but I can tell you something. If you follow the step in the first video, you are 99% to your private personal finish, because the assembling of the parts we produced yesterday is not the great work. So if you made it proper, you will earn the function. You will see it. Well, that's all for the first thing. Now I want to try to change the position of my camera, and then we will hurry up because today is Sunday. I have some family and I gave my son a few rights to do something with me outside of all the pyramid problematic. But I think it's very important to spread the information very fast, because now it's the right time to spread the info, and now it's the right time that everybody can build such a pyramid for himself. Well, there's one thing I have to tell you on the nearby end. I don't want to give you any guarantee that the pyramid is working in your home too. So if you plan to make 100% fixed action, please try to find somebody who can make the technology, who can reproduce it. I don't want to answer millions of mails why it worked in my case and what did I make fails, and it would be a little bit complicated. So my private plan would be, I think about 50 to 100 persons who will able to produce energy within the next 14 days, 3 weeks. And I hope, and this is my only donation I want to get from these people, I hope to get the small info with the positions and with maybe a few pictures from a running pyramid. And then I please all the people who produced their own running machine to help all the people who cannot do it because they made some mistakes or something else. So please understand that I'm not able to help anybody to make a producing pyramid. But we have plenty of real good specialists in the internet, and we have plenty of people, they are really friendly and they will help you if they have produced their own pyramid, their own working pyramid. Well, I tried to make the video, the second part, a little bit shorter because I did the whole night the cutting and the rendering of the video, and I plan to sleep tonight a little bit, but now it's 12 o'clock. We ate a little bit and now I have to keep the solution to finish my work latest at 0.5 p.m. So let's hurry up. Okay, now we have the inside view of the pyramid. I turned it around because we have to make a few special fixings to center all the items we will build in. In this case there are more possibilities. I use the cheapest and the fastest way. I will put some screws in all the corners, and then we need something to make a cross inside. I have a special material for this. This is I don't know the name in English. It's a cord. It's a textile cord. It's an original English corset cord. I like corsets, of course. And on the end we will make a special frame we will make a special frame to show the X position, the center position of the pyramid. Okay, for this we will make a few screws here inside on the corners. It's a little bit tricky because you have to work as good as possible, because it's very important to take the center of the pyramid. Okay, if you have done this, it should look like this. What's the goal? The goal is to find the absolute center of the pyramid on the bottom base. So please notice, it's not necessary to fix it directly in the center of the metal frame. It's really necessary to fix it in the exact center of the outside gypsum plate frame. That's very important, because the gypsum plates maybe would stay a little bit out of the metal frame, and so it's necessary. You can see it here on the metal frame. It's not in the center, but on the corner of the gypsum plates it would be on the center. It's a little bit tricky, but it's not a great deal to make this. Now it's the time to speak about the real important things. The real important things for you. Where is the center inside a pyramid? Maybe you can remember the first part. I told you to keep every time the half and the half and the half, and to make some lines to find the physical center of the pyramid itself. But more important than this one factor is easy called. So we keep 90 degrees here, 90 degrees here, 90 here. Of course it's not a good drawing, but I will say you the system. And if you see the pyramid now from the side, we have an angle point, and now the great problem is coming, because most people, they think that they have to go inside with the 90 degrees angle too, but that's not working. I don't know why, but I have an only explication for this. If we know that the harvested radiation will coming from downside to up, so I think it will go here and reflect in this kind of angle. So it's very important for you to know, it doesn't matter if you have more or less angle here in the pyramid. I found out the radiation, the reflection of the radiation coming from the ground, from the earth itself, will make every time a right angle to the floor and not a right angle to the surface itself. So if we know this, we don't have any problems to center our reactor inside the pyramid. Maybe you remember from the first part, we made here the special lines to find the physical center of the surface. And now we have to go from this absolutely in a parallel angle to the floor to find out the center inside the pyramid. I hope it was not too tricky for you to understand my bad English, but it's very important, because if you make a 90-degree angle, of course, here inside, you will come nearby to the floor of the pyramid, and if you place the reactor into the floor, there is no function anymore. That's the problem. What can you do to make a very easy finding? You can drill here a small hole in the parallel angle of the floor. You can drill a small hole, and you can put a little bit of welding steel inside, and you can do it on 3 sides, and you see approximately the center. The original center, where you can find the original center, is not a great problem, because we can make it when we make the run up from the pyramid. You will see, if we change the position 1-2 centimeters up or down, or left or right, we get absolutely different measures. So it's very easy to center the pyramid after all the construction. But now, for the first time, it's very important to know this point, and to know that you have to go parallel to the floor line and not in a 90-degree angle to the surface itself. Okay, then let's go to the last and most important secrets of my pyramid. Now we know where we have to center everything we produced, but now we have to bring the reactor in the real center. Maybe you remember we had the special construction. We need the plan for the wiring schematic. We have the reactor, the cap, the outside tube, and we have, of course, here inside the inside copper tube with its windings and the quartz center. Well, maybe you know we have a distance here approximately of 29 centimeters. So you have to keep the center of this coil. The center would be at 14.5 at 14.5 centimeter. And of course you have to mark it in the reactor on the outside, the original position of the inner center. It's not a great problem because on the downside you can look in and we know this outside is 36 plus the cap, and we can of course keep the 36 if you centered it really. If you made a good center, you can center also the great tube with the wire. So we have one wire here up, one wire here down, and of course we have the outside wire with another tube. On the second side we have our capacitor. Sorry, I called this item condensator in the first part. Now I checked it in the internet. My English is really very bad, but you know it. The right word for this item I told is capacitor, of course. And we have the second piece, the plastic wheel. It's not a tube, it's a wheel. And we have the inner coil, and we have the outer coil. Maybe you remember the two end pieces of the coils we need for synchronize. I will show it when the pyramid is working, what we have to do with these small pieces of wire. We don't connect these pieces, and because of this I make some circles here. They will be every time free. These are the two connectors. We keep it inner coil, outer coil. So it's a little bit easier when we make the schematic diagram. And of course we have here the four endings of the wire. Here we say reactor out, reactor in. You will see why I define it in and out. And we will call this A and we will call this B. So in the next part of the video we need this to connect it right. But you can believe me, the connecting of the coils is that easy. You cannot make any error. And on the end I will make you a special schematic diagram that you can understand everything. But now in this phase of our construction, the most important point is to know the absolute center of the inner coil. So it would be good if you control it twice. Of course you can change it after the setup. That's the reason why we don't have this energy since few hundred years, because nobody was foolish enough to make something that easy what I will show you now. Okay, so we start with our connection diagram. Please be careful. I show it first on the diagram and then I show it directly in the pyramid. You cannot make anything fails. It's very important. You have the black wire who is coming out from the reactor, you know. You have to connect this with our pole number A. This is the coil outside going down. It's very important not to change it. Please don't ask me why, but It is it. So you have to connect this one with point A. The second one, no, sorry, I will make it more easy. Connector number B, this one, it's the other side of the outside coil. You have to connect with the inner coil from our capacitor. This would be also the point of mass. We define it as minus. Please be sure, if you make it outside, that you have a real good grounding somewhere. In my case, I will stick a great piece of iron into the earth to make a real good earth connection. So this point have to be earthed. If you have some good place in your home, maybe in the house it's working too. Maybe you can remember V.6 was invented inside a house, and we have the good situation here in Austria. We have plenty of water lines here around our area. It's a very bad area for sensible persons, because we have some areas here in my own village. You can meet all the 25, 28 meters some of these water lines, and for making a house, it's not the best place to make a house, because if you're sensible, you have to be very, creative to find a good place for your house. Well, this one have to be grounded as much as possible. And finally, very easy, you will not believe it, this one and this one are connected too, and this is our output. That's all we have to do. And now you can smile. It isn't more. What happens inside? Well, we can discuss plenty of hours what happens inside the pyramid. I think I will make another video to show you the function of the system, but now for the first it will be enough to show you that it works and that you can duplicate it, that you can replicate it. And of course we have a absolutely good theory why it's working. And we have some things to show which power you can keep from great pyramids. But now in this case, in this first part of my demonstration, it will be enough to get a little bit, to get something. Because if you get some energy, you believe the rest. And I don't have too much I don't have to speak that much, because the ground system is cleared. Well, on the end, we keep our user. We will try different users on this pyramid. I hope we will get enough power to give a little bit more powerful users a chance. But we will see it. I didn't this setup before, because I made it with you together on video. On these 2 points, on this point and on this point, you can keep your user. Whatever you want, a motor, a light, or something else. Well, let us connect the connections. So, as I told you, we keep this one and this one together. So we have to cut it a little bit. Don't hurt you while we're working. We need a little screwdriver, and we connect these two guys together. It sounds so easy. So I keep this kind of connection system because sometimes it's necessary to change the setup a little bit to produce the inner harmony. Of course, if everything is worked in and you know the function and you can prove the function, you can weld it as well. I'm a little bit sorry because I every time say welding, but I mean soldering. But I think you will know this. And then the other side of the coil, we told, will keep on here in the inner coil. It's very important, the inner coil, and that's one of the major reasons why I use different colors on my setup. So I cannot change it, and I know, okay, this is the right thing. Sometimes it can be necessary that you need a small, I hope you can see it, of course, sometimes it's necessary that you need a small coil windings here, approximately on this point here, 2 or 3 windings with a diameter of 10 to 15 millimeters. So if the pyramide makes, what's the real name? If the pyramide power increases and decreases without any turning, without any reaction from your side, so the inside reactor is not working stable. And if this occurs, if this problem occurs, it can help you to make here a small coil with 2 or 3 windings. So most time I get some marker like this, and I will make this wire a little bit longer, make the check on the downside, and try first with 6 or 7 winds, and then I cut even 1 winding to increase the power of production. But now in this situation it's absolutely not necessary how much power we can produce. My deal here is only to show it produces something, anything, and we will see how much it will produce. And of course we have the last cable here, and we will connect it to the outer coil. That's the first part of the whole setup. So we can connect it now in a secured way. Don't do this without the metal plate on your downside, because if you do this, what I'm doing here now, it can happen if the pyramid is north properly and you're standing on a water line, it can be that you will get a little bit shocked. Well, that's all we have to do. Of course, with my manipulation here we lost a little bit the centering. Another sentence to the resistor. I tried different setups. I tried the coil somewhere, I tried the coil on the floor, I tried the coil on the top. I'm speaking from the capacitor coil. I found out if you have an angle from the center to the floor position, you get the most amperes. I don't know why, but maybe there is something inside the pyramid, maybe there is some radiation inside producing when the inner reactor gets in harmony. And I told you the word harmony the last 2.5 hours. Meanwhile, everything what happens inside the pyramid have to do with swingings and harmony. That's one of the major things I found out. So the quartz, I think it's an explication. The quartz started to swing if you give him into the right direction, and it's like a piezo effect. Maybe you know this. The small stones, when you press them, you get a small amount of energy. And if this quartz sand becomes to get harmonic, there is some reaction to the coil, and the inner coil will get reacted, and the reaction of the inner coil will go in this system to the outer coil. And we can take measurements if we have the pyramid north properly and without the metal plate, of course. I can show you the differences between the voltages in the inner circle and the outer circle. So you will find out we have an output in the inner circle about 10 to 15% of the energy we get with the second coil, the outer coil. And of course, it's a very impressive research, because if we keep some thinner cable and more windings, we get real great voltages, but we don't get the amperes we need. If we keep some thicker wire, Of course we can use it. We get a very low voltage, but we get real fat amperes. So we can decide with our setup, with our system here, if we want to collect voltage or if we want to collect amperes. This setup now in this moment is a little bit a mixing between both systems. Of course, I hope to make a little bit of show effect. So I hope to get a little bit more amps to show you some real good uses, for example lamps. But I don't want to say too much now in this moment, because as everywhere in the world, things can happen in both ways. And let me say it very easy. From 50 setups I made, I had 3 or 4 real good running systems, and 45 to 47 systems with some errors I don't know till today. So it's not that case that I will make a pyramid and it will work 100%. But we will see it. If it will not work, it can be happen that this setup will not work today. I have to make it working, and if it wouldn't work, we will find out together why it's not working, and we will keep it working. That's it. So now we come to the final step, the absolutely final step, the crown step. We try to find out. Okay, it should be a good day for us. The Lord will help us, because now in this moment it isn't raining. It's absolutely cold, but it isn't raining. The only problem is we have a real great lawn here, but the grass is a little bit too high and everything is absolutely wet. So we cannot use my 2 major points to demonstrate anything. We have to go into the small lawn. There we have 2 places. They are not the best places, but for demonstration it will be enough. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the worst case scenario happened. The weather outside is really cold and absolutely wet, and we have very dark clouds here today on Sunday 26th of June 2011. So I decided to make the demonstration inside my shack, inside my mess, and for this I have 2 points here inside my shack where I made some tests in the past, but they are not the best places. But I don't want to get wet, and if I start my demonstration and it will start to rain outside again, because it's very dark outside and of course very cold. We have 13 degrees centigrade now in this moment. I will not help you and I will not help myself too. Well, so in this case I decided to show the system inside of my mess. What we did now, we organized to, don't know the name, you see it from the floor to the pyramid, and maybe you can see it, but I'm not sure that you can see it. There is a small white point. There are some other white points here in my mess. This will show us the existence of one of these so-called water lines in the ground of the earth. Well, please, sorry that there's a lot of mess here in the room. I did not clean that all, because I'm not a great cleaner. I'm a little bit messy. Okay, I took the pyramid in direct north-south position, and after putting it in direct north-south position, I went 2 degrees to west. A few minutes later we will try it a few degrees east, but in rooms it's every time a little bit better to go minus degrees. Outside the rooms it would be better to go 2 or 3 degrees plus to north. I don't know why, but it is like this. So what I did else, because I didn't put the pyramid on the floor, I made me a small pendulum to find the point where we have to work. Well, and I will not be surprised if the principle would not work today, because since yesterday I had a lot of problems. Everything went a little bit failed, so let's look what we can do. Okay, normally we have to be a little bit carefully for these two wires, because if the pyramid is properly northed and if the position is okay, and you have a good water line, so it can be that you have a great amount of static energy here now. But we have to put the pendulum away because we don't need this now, and it's a kind of metal and it nerves, so it could theoretically damage our power. So it's absolutely uneasy to make that all in a one-man company. That's the problem of all solists. Well, okay, now I had to change a lot of things. The first thing is the camera angle. Now I hope you can see better into the pyramid. When I get rich the next time, I will buy a good camera with a good wide angle. My camera is a little bit weak for this kind of productions, but I hope it will be okay. And the second thing I have changed absolutely, maybe you can see it, I made two small pieces of wire out. The black one for the ground and the blue one, of course, you know it, for the power. So we hope to get some power. The most important thing we have to do now is we have to ground our pyramid, and for this I have a special cable to ground. It's a special loading cable for cars, and if I will find it, I will install it. If you have some mess in your shack, it can happen sometimes that you will search some things and you don't find them. In my case, I wanted to search for a special cable, I don't know the real name in English, you know, where you can load two cars together to give them starting help. But I didn't find it, the great grip, and so I kept a normal earthing wire. I put it in the screw here, it's a good mess point, and the cable is going to my basic floor earth. It's mounted since years. Maybe you can see it here. It's mounted since years to earth my experiments. Well, please note, very important, you don't need any earth contact inside the pyramid. So all the construction is not connected with the earth. The earth, the outside earth, is only for your security and to help the pyramid to swing up. So it's a metal frame, and sometimes it can happen that the metal frame is loading up, and if you touch him, you get a real great shock. Well, now we earthed everything, and now the moment of truth, we will try to get a little bit of electricity out of the pyramid. Okay, let's become dreams true. What I'm trying first is to make a short circuit between all. Sorry, the smoke is my cigarette, it's not coming outside of the pyramid. You should be a little bit careful, because if there is no load on all the system, there can be a lot of static power inside, so we have to be a little bit careful. I every time start with the inner coil, the minus coil. It's not that dangerous, and you can keep it the other side of the wire, not on the metal, on the plastic. And sometimes if you come too near, you feel a little bit, or you get a very small. Okay, there's no ignition, it's good. So we have connected here, And the second tries to make a little bit of short circuit. Maybe you heard it, you saw it. That's not very good, because we have some static inside, and we have to bring the static away, because normally this should not happen. Normally this should not happen if everything is connected to the ground. So I have to check the ground, of course, because in this situation it's a little bit too dangerous for me to work on this system now. And of course we have a resistor, a special shunt resistor. We have to unload the whole system to make it absolutely empty, because I want to show you how to swing it up. Because in most cases, at 99 attempts, you get one attempt where you can have a little bit static on the beginning. But in most cases, you will see, if you install the pyramid like this installment now, there will be happen absolutely nothing. You will get nothing on your multimeter. And I want to show you to start the pyramid, because this now, in this moment, is nice for me if we have a little bit static here inside, but it's not good for demonstration. Okay, now it's very important to put all the static energy out of the coils, because sometimes for transportation, and if you make a new setup, it can happen that you have some static voltage, static power in your pyramid. And as you saw before, we were able to make a small ignition, and it's too dangerous to work with the pyramid if it's not absolutely unloaded. And in fact, the next very interesting thing is, in 99 cases when you install such a new pyramid, you will get absolutely no output. So when I make pyramids, it's really in my whole life the second time that I get some voltage output directly when I install the pyramid the first time. And I think it's not very good in the video to show you a thing running from the first moment. So we will overload the pyramid, we will short circuit the pyramid, that we get empty coils. Please note, it's very, very important, never unload a pyramid with a short circuit. So we do crocodile clamps, make a short circuit, will destroy with 100% security your crystals inside. So you need every time a user. In this moment I have some 12 volt 60 watt H1 glowing lamp from Cars. You can see it here. I mounted it with my crocodiles, and now I will install it. First we keep the minus, of course, if we can call it minus. Second we keep the plus. So maybe you saw it, there was a very small point ignition, but there is no energy, there is lighting, nothing. So this is the best scenario for starting. Please believe me, if you have energy from the first moment, it's too easy. So we will unload everything here inside, we will unload the coil, and of course it's not a joke if you make some experiments with these two kinds of coils. There can be a little bit of so-called rest energy in the coils, and to start a proper setup, it's the best idea to ground it and to short fuse it. But as I told you, not short fusing without user. Okay, if we fused it, in this case for 10 to 15 seconds, we can open it, and now I think we can handle it without any danger. Okay, that's the most important thing. But if you have some energy from the beginning, from the starting on, it's a very good thing, because you have the early success. But we don't need this early success. I want to show you how to make the stable success. So something else we can try. We'll keep DC we will keep to 200 volts, and of course we need our crankies again. So, and we connect them to the multimeter to show if we have a little bit energy, to see what we have. So, what do we have? We have something like nothing, and let me show 20 volts 00 point on. This is nothing. Okay, these are the neon lamps here inside, and all the kinds of wires. Maybe some radio station, I don't know. I hope you can see it. Now we have 0.9 to 1 millivolt. This is nothing. This is absolutely nothing. Well, I told you it's very necessary to synchronize the two coils. And now we can make, with these two coils, we can make some experiments. We can cut them a little bit while we let the multimeter stick down. I hope you can see it. So now we can make some tries, because the great story about the capacitor is that he have to swing too. And maybe you know it from amateur radio or from CB. If you have some swingings, if you have some frequency, for frequency it's absolutely necessary to get harmonic. So in the amateur radio we call about SWR, standing wave. So if you produce an antenna, it's very important that all the energy is going out, all the swingings, all the frequencies going out, and if they will come too much back, you have some problems. And it's a little bit the same here. It's like a radio, you have to adjust it. And it's a little bit tricky to adjust it, because you have the two coils and you don't know where to start with cutting the coils. Of course you can make it very, very proper. You can make measurements before you wind the coils. But as you see, we have on the other side, we have here now the greater distances. This wire from the reactor to the coil, everything is added to the end length. And so it's not very sinful to write everything proper on centimeters or an inch and to wind it proper. On the end, you have to cut a little bit. That's the problem. Well, and now we have two problems in one, because it can happen that we can cut and cut and cut, but we were too short from the beginning on. But it's normally not possible, because we are every time longer than before, because we have the way from the vertical coil to the horizontal coil. So normally we have to cut something. When I built the two coils, I took very great care to make the coils approximately 2 or 3 centimeters straight together. So in my case, I will kick a little bit the coil. I will start with the black one, and I give them a small amount, and then I look to the multimeter. Maybe you are smiling now, because you cannot do this more than 5 centimeters on each side, but you will see it's not very necessary to make the great cutting. It can come very fast, that we cut a little bit and we get a great amount of electricity. You see, if I put here the too long, I get 1-1. If I cut, I had 10-5, 7-5, 4, maybe you see 2, now it goes back. So we know we are on the right way to cut the violet wire. And this we can do. You see 85, 60, 70, 73, 74, and that's what we need. That's what we need. So I hope you can see it. So the power increases. The power still goes down, still goes up. That's what we need. Now it goes back. This will show us the violet wire is the right wire we need to cut. But I think we need another small break. 9600, you see? 107. I hope you can see it here. And it decreases when the cutting is finished. So I think we have to try it to run the pyramid, because it will not get better than 120, 130 in the moment where you cut, and the fine-tuning you can make if you have some real load on the pyramid. And now there's the next very interesting thing inside the pyramid. We're speaking every time from frequency, and to bring the pyramid into frequency, it's necessary to give her some load. So in this moment we cannot measure any great amount of electricity, but if we bring a user not too great and not too small, we can allow the coil to swing. But to allow the coil to swing, we need something what is swinging itself, and that's the great mystery, and that's one of the greatest secrets of the whole pyramid. Listen carefully, it's very, very important. You cannot start a pyramid with a lamp or with a very low ohm user. You need something very high ohm, and you need something what gives the pyramid some swingings back. You cannot start the pyramid with the lamp. You cannot start the pyramid with all the uses which are not swinging, because now we have the problem, we produce DC voltage and we need some swingings into the coils to start the work of the coils. And one of the best things you can put into the pyramid is any kind of motor, because it sounds ugly, it sounds stupid, but it is the truth. If the motor is turning, the motor seems to give something back to the coil. So the motor will emit the coil to swing, and you will see it from the start to the end. It starts a little bit slow and it will go faster and faster and faster. And so you can see it on the voltmeter too. The voltage and the amperage is increasing within -1 second, and it's very impressive to see this. But for this you need a special item to bring it into swing, and that's the next deal. Now I'm 100% sure that we can produce any energy with the pyramid. Everything is, in my opinion, okay, and we have a little bit now 1.0, sometimes 2.0, sometimes 3.0. It depends on my movement too, because I'm for the pyramid in this case I'm some resistor too. And now I want to bring a motor or something like this, and then we try to get some swingings into the pyramid. Well, now we have to try to find an end for all this kind, and we try to make a little bit power on your pyramid. Well, we keep the poles together, and you will see there's no reaction. So I hope you can see it originally. So these are the two wires, the red and the green one, and here we have a small user, and as you can see there is nothing else on site. So we don't have any multimeter, we don't have any tricks here. And what I want to show you, I have to go a little bit away with my wires. So now we have nothing, there is no reaction. I hope we can see the ventilator good. Okay. And if I will turn the ventilator, So I have to make a few turns. Wait, I have to change my hands. So make a little bit spinning on. And we gave something to the coil. And now we have to wait approximately 2 to 3 minutes. This is not very wonderful what we see now. Okay, that was all. We try to get a little bit more. So I have to check the camera that you can see it now, really. Okay, so I will need a little bit more. Okay, this is not very nice, but it's normal. So wait a second. We have to check the error. Okay, if you see, if we connect the wire, we get a little bit of movement. So we have to connect it properly. Maybe the crocodiles are defect, I don't know. This is nothing to show anybody. Well, it's not a great amount, but now we can synchronize the pyramid in a better way. Maybe it will help to keep a little bit more out of the... It's lower than before. Okay. So we have to try it on the other side a little bit. So that's not very much. If I am true, this is a little bit disaster. This is a disaster because I made the coil very great and I don't know where's the problem now in this moment. But now we have to do the following things. We will make on the both sides from the swinging coil, we will make the opening. I will keep away the insulating, and I try to get a little bit longer on the violet side because I think here we have the problem. The swinging, the frequency, the harmony is not okay now. So give me a minute. Next installment. Now I hope you can see it here on the video. I think you can see it. Now I installed a little piece of metal with 2 screws. Maybe you know it. It's to connect some cables and wires. It's the same like this, but I put the insulation away to handle it a little bit better. But on the other side it's a problem. Sorry. Don't touch this if the pyramid is producing the full energy, because it could be a little bit terrible for you. Well, what's the deal with this small thing? Now I can touch it without any problem. Now I can adjust the length of this wire from millimeter to millimeter, and so we will see what happens. If the pyramid is fully cold, like in this moment, there is no production, no powering on site, it's not a great problem to touch it. But please make all the time some checks if everything is okay, and if you are not 100% sure if your coils are cold or not, you keep the great power user, maybe you make it specially for this, and every time when you're not working on the pyramid, put a great user, a low ohm user between these 2 wires. Well, now we have the piece installed here, and you see if I connect it, I get a little bit of movement, but there is no real movement because on one side we don't have the power here, on the other side maybe we don't have the real voltage here. I don't want to use any multimeter now in this moment because I know the people. The first sentence they will say is, okay, you have some atomic power plant in your multimeter and this will load all your pyramid, and I don't want to discuss with anybody if it's working or not. So you see all my try here is free of anything, and now we try to give it a swing, and we can see, there is a little bit more tempo in the swing, and I hope to get more turning speed in the next 10, 15 or 30 seconds. Meanwhile, I will speak a little bit about my multimeters. It's very important because in the last scenes you saw this one. It's a very small one. The cheapest multimeter you can buy in Europe from Voltcraft, and this is my major multimeter which I'm working. Of course, it's not an electronic one, it's for car mechanics. This is my main profession. I want to use two multimeters because I want to avoid any callings for cheats. So if you can see in the corner, the ventilator, the motor will get a little bit more speed, but not that speed we need. Before we touch all the electric inside, I will keep the greater one because here we have the great numbers. So where to put it? It's very complicated to make everything alone. So we keep 20 volts, of course, and we try to make a measurement. So okay, red is mass, very intelligent. It's mass and so we get 8.22, but this is not a voltage like you think. You see it on the motor. There is no power here, so the volts they are not very interesting. We know the amps are interesting. So this 8 point something you can forget in the same second, because of course the motor is a little bit reproducing and sending back. What we need is more speed here on the fan. And now we can do two things. We can adjust the pyramid itself a little bit, we can turn the pyramid a little bit, or we can try to keep the high and the lowness of all the equipment. So we have to make a setup now. But I think in normal ways this setup is using a little bit more time, so we cannot make it in one cut. We cannot make it in one cut because it's a little bit tricky to try all the possibilities which can happen now. But now I think it's a good time to go with you around my pyramid to prove that there we will have no other wires installed. So what do we have here? Of course, you know, here's the pyramid. Here are the wires. You can see the wires, the connectors, black and red, up to my little friend. Oh, he's making more speed now. Wonderful. And now I will show you something very interesting. It's a little bit dangerous, but I want to make the whole equipment without any cut. So please, I have to walk through my whole shack. I don't want to make a cut for you to make it serious. So of course we know we have some cable here, the earthing. The ventilator is still turning. We will put down the earthing. I don't want to touch it now, but you see, great amount of power, but we will get more, you can believe it. So now I want to go around with you only for a fake check. It's a little bit small here in my shack, so I want to show it from all the sides. You can search for cables or wires or something like this. We can put it from downstairs. There are no cables anywhere. Okay, there are a few cables from my multimeter, you see it, and the one cutted cable here from our special grounding. Okay, the vent is still turning. I'm very happy. And you see all the connections. This is only for centering, you know, and the coils and the wire. So of course, and here you will find nothing, only our corset cord. Okay, now I did a little bit out of center. You can see it in the same second. The fan is turning a little bit slower. Well, in the next phase we will try to increase the power, because this is nothing to present you. This is not the amount I wanted to show you. Okay, now in the next try we try to get a little bit more power inside. What did I do in the last few minutes? Maybe you can see it. I fixed the fan, because I am 100% sure that we get some more turning speed in the fan. And of course I turned the whole pyramid another 2 degrees in direction east. So it's not 0 degree south and north in this row. It's now about 4.5 degrees in direction east. Maybe it's affected a little bit from the metal bars here. They are standing. It's better if the whole pyramid is directly on the earth. It will increase the power unbelievable. But now we will get a little bit electricity, and it's not the goal for me today. It was the goal, if I'm true, but it's not the goal for me today to break all the world records in producing energy with my pyramid. I want to show you that it's working quite, because there are plenty of people, they told me they built some pyramids, but they never get out one only milliamp. And if we get out a little bit of energy, it will be plenty enough for this demonstration, of course. Well, we will stick on the ventilator. Okay, it's sticked on. So we have the 2 wires. We give him a cork, and maybe you can hear it. We have a little bit more speed now. So, as last time, I will keep the camera in hand. You hear the ventilator, the fan. Now we have some better working conditions. Well, we can optimize it, of course. If we make the coil longer or shorter, we can play a lot. But for me, and maybe for you, this demonstration should prove the function of itself. As I told you, I don't want to break the record in energy producing now. But it would be a good job for you to show me your records. Well, as you saw, the grounding is still installed, because when I touch the whole pyramid, I'm not a fool, I will ground it. But if you want, I can cut it twice. It's not necessary to cut, because I made it transportable now. So I will put it on the earth, and now you can see again there are no wires anywhere. Well, I have a last. Oh, okay, we are out of the angle. That's one of the major. I see it. I can see it in the camera. We are a little bit out of the angle. This will cost us plenty of energy. No wires, no cables, nothing like this. Okay. In my last installment, I will show you the last secret, and then you can do what you want with this invention. Well, now we are on the end of my video. What we have is maybe itself producing pyramid. This moment it looks like it could work for the next weeks or days or hours. I cannot tell you. And On the end, I want to thank you for watching this video. It was a very long video, so all in all it have to be more than 3 hours. Thank you for your patience. I want to show you a little bit, and I want to give you the last most important part on your way to produce your own pyramid. One of the major sentences I can tell you, if the pyramid is producing sometimes, so you saw it's a little bit tricky to get it, don't put away the motor. I will show you something. You can generate any kind of energy now. You get amps, you get volts, and if you want, you can light the bulb. You hear it on the motor, it sounds a little bit slower, but never disconnect the motor. If you disconnect the motor, you will destroy your quartz inside. That's one of the major problems. I don't know why, but you have to refill the quartz inside. So you can use it everywhere you want. This is a 12 volt and 55 to 60 watt bulb. We know we have more than 3 ampere in the moment if we put on the connector. You can try it in your home, you can make all the measurements. I think my job is done, and if you have some questions to the pyramid, please don't ask me, please ask the people they reconstruct it. Well, on the end, we want to make a little bit light, and of course with the light, okay, I want to make a small tour through the pyramid that you can prove it. There are no wires, no cables, nothing else inserted. These 2 wires I made because I need my crocus, and I want all the equipment the next days to do nothing else than light and blow. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, thank you, goodbye.